and call this meeting to order. Would you please call the roll?
Ron.
Present.
Long is absent with notice. Powell.
Here.
Cabal should be joining us shortly. Smith Charles is absent with notice. Weipert. Here. Hoffman.
Present.
Markham.
Here.
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. At this time, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a whole bunch of minutes here that we need approval of. We can approve them all at once unless somebody has a change they want to make. Motion by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Any comments, questions? If not, please prompt the vote. We had a lot of meetings. Those were all our budget reviews.
You have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Next up is today's agenda. I need a motion to approve it. Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Rahman. Any comments, changes? Seeing none, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, agenda is approved. So next we have our first public comment for anyone who wishes to address this committee on any topic on today's agenda. If you would care to speak, please come to the end of the table and tell us your name and where you live. And there's nobody online that's asking to speak, so with that, I will, seeing no one, close public comment. The first one, we'll have a second one later in the meeting. And we will move on to communications. So we have two communications. I just need a motion to receive and file. Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Weipert. Anybody have any questions or comments on the communications? Seeing none, let's prompt the vote. Yes.
You have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. Motion carries. So with that, we will move on to item 8, which is our Public Health and Safety Committee recommendations. The first item is item 8A, acceptance from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services of the FY 2024 to 2028 Cooperative Reimbursement Program. So I need a motion. Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Is there anybody here to speak to this one?
I am Suzanne Holliger, friend of the court.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi. This is a 5-year contract that will fund a good portion of the front of the court operating budget. This is federal money that passes through the State Office of Child Support and provides funding for us to enforce and modify and manage the domestic relations caseload for the circuit court.
Okay.
Happy to take any questions.
Commissioner White.
Just a comment, I mean, it's significant, $75 million over the next 5 years, and it's pretty hefty county match, but, I mean, that's significant federal funds.
Yes, it is. And we, in addition to getting 66% of our operating costs funded, we also get incentives based on how well we perform in 5 different categories, and those usually amount to about $1.5 million a year. So I agree, Commissioner, it is a hefty sum of money.
Anybody else?
No,
Commissioner Rahman?
just to echo what Commissioner Whitebird said, it is a lot of money, I'm glad to see that we're getting, 66%, but the 34% that we're ponying up is still a big chunk of change. I mean, when we're talking about all of these departments that need this, need that, it's sad that we need to spend that much in this area, but I understand if that's where our need is. That's where our need is. It's just it's a significant chunk of change.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Seeing none, let's go ahead and prompt the vote. Excuse me.
You have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is item 8B for the FY 2024 contract positions creation. Commissioner Hoffman, supported by
I'll support.
Commissioner Whitebird. And
We have somebody that has comment.
is that you? 50, yes, it's the 52-1, 52nd District Courts, yes.
I don't hear my name, I don't get them.
I hadn't gotten that far, but you're on top of it, Alex. All right. So you want to tell us a little bit about this and
Sure.
why we're doing this?
So as some of you already heard yesterday, I was here yesterday, we're requesting 3 positions be created to support our IT. Our current department consists of 1 person whose services not just my court, but the other 3 district courts, so in the 4 corners of the county. Obviously, 1 person can't service the needs properly that way. Additionally, we're implementing e-filing, which is going to be up and live at the end of this year, December. We are changing over to video courtrooms and we're setting up an iPad check-in process in the probation area. So on top of the normal, just the everyday IT issues that arise, we have these other programs that are being implemented and we needed assistance. So we had requested during the budget process to create 3 positions. It was not supported by administration, but Kyle Jen had suggested that we request 3 contract positions to last for a year. And so that's what we're doing today. I think the sum with the equipment was roughly $372,000.
Okay. So just to clarify, it's 3 positions for 1 year contract, not full-time positions?
Nope, not full-time positions.
Okay, and I would expect in a year, we'll be looking at where we're at with all of this.
Correct.
Any questions? Commissioner Whitebird?
We're part of a pilot program, right? We got SCAO.
Right, so e-filing has been implemented in other courts throughout the state, but we were selected rather suddenly a couple of months ago. They asked if we wanted to be next. I mean, it's mandated. We're gonna have to get it with e-filing at some point, but we wanted e-filing because it does assist patrons. It's much better for the end user. So yeah, it's a great thing, but it's a big undertaking. It's only for the civil division area. So we're talking about landlord tenant, small claims, lawsuits, those types of things will be affected first. And then within a couple of years, we'll move on to our criminal division to allow for e-filing for our criminal division as well.
Commissioner Rahman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Alexander. I know we talked about this, I think, during our budget hearings as well. You did bring this up and you'd mentioned at that time as well that you'd presented this to our executive team and they had denied it the first time. And maybe I just want to have a better understanding of, if they denied it the first time, now we're back revisiting the conversation. It's a 1-year position. Do we have a plan for kind of where we're heading after this? Is this going to be a general fund expenditure moving forward? Have we earmarked money for it? I just want to understand why the no the first time and now we're trying a different approach to get the funding and get these.
The reason, we weren't given a clear reason as to no, other than from a financial standpoint, that a lot of departments need a lot of things. We asked for 2 deputy court administrators, which we've asked for the last 2 previous years as well, and then we included these 3 positions. And really it was just a no from a financial standpoint. It wasn't like we don't agree that you need it. It was, well, this is what we can do maybe now.
Okay.
That's kind of the answer we were given.
And so we're taking this over the court positions, because I know that was something that has been in previous years as well, right? That we were looking for the other court positions?
The court, oh yeah, so we had given up court positions, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah, we already gave up positions in the last time we were asked to do so. And so part of what we had said was, okay, if we're giving up some of these positions, we need to beef up our IT, we need to beef up our technology so that maybe we don't need as many clerks, right? So that was the iPad check-in that's still very slowly moving forward. But same with these IT needs, I mean, e-filing theoretically, eventually, maybe we'll need less clerks because you have less patrons coming into the courthouse. Of course, somebody still has to receive and file and make sure that the documents that go through are correct. But theoretically, eventually, in a couple of years, maybe we could do with less clerks. Nobody wants to lay anybody off, but through attrition. And so that was one of the things we had said when they were asking us to give up people. We had already, long before most of you guys were here, in 2007 when I was here, we gave up a lot of positions. The district courts were cut really close to the quick on budget. So then when they wanted us to give up people and then we asked for some people, they wanted us to fund it, but we don't have any way to fund it. So this is another example of we don't have any way to fund the positions. So had we been able to say to them, well, we can come up with an ongoing cost savings of whatever it would be to create these 3 positions and pay for their benefits, then we probably could have gotten them. But because we don't have that, it was better than a flat out no.
Sure. But is it sustainable? I guess my question is it sustainable after this year?
Well, we're gonna come back and ask again. I mean, I'm just being honest, we're gonna ask for those 3 positions again because e-filing isn't going to go away. And what happens is after we implement at the end of this year, then of course, I mean, I had mentioned yesterday, we weren't here, but there's 10 district judges. We've got all of these civil clerks, people who have to learn the e-filing system. It's totally different than the work process that they do now. So it's learning a whole new job. And of course, we need IT support. One thing that I mentioned yesterday is every department that I know of has their own IT support. And our department, the 52s, were considered individual. We have 4 individual budgets, but we're also considered the same department. We have 1 IT person for 203 people, as I mentioned in our budget hearing. So that person cannot support 203 people in 4 different locations.
And then the only other smaller piece of it is I saw, the position will require additional equipment, 3 laptops, 3 cell phones, 2 desk phones, totaling $21,000. And again, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what you're asking for the people, I get it, but it's just a clarification point on that. Is that just a pass-through from IT or where did that number come from?
It's a pass-through from IT. So we don't determine those costs. They asked, what will these people need? I mean, they're new employees. They'll need their own laptop because they have to be mobile. We don't necessarily know that they're gonna need their own cell phones, the county cell phones. Some people don't choose to carry them anyway, I don't. And then a desk phone, obviously, so people can reach them.
Sure,
But those costs are not costs that we have anything to do with.
it's just from IT. Yeah,
Right.
IT, that's a whole other discussion, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know where $21,000 comes from for 3 laptops, 3 cell phones and 2 desk phones.
yeah, laptop, I think, in general, is somewhere around, I think, 2,500?
It is expensive, it goes back to the rates, right, so it's the chargeback isn't for the laptop's carrying a lot of IT overhead for networking and security and stuff like that.
Sure.
And we have to pay also quarterly support costs
Right,
to IT.
understood. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Commissioner Powell?
I know, and you may have, I missed the budget hearing that you all came that day I was absent. My question to you, because I know before, with the Wi-Fi situation,
Yes,
did that get better?
it did get better,
Oh,
yeah.
but is it executed though?
It is executed.
Great,
It did get, yes, that
So
was our
maybe-
biggest,
okay.
yeah, that was a hill that we were climbing for a long time. And yes, that was one of your first, I think, times,
Yeah, because I
right?
couldn't believe it. With the
Right.
status quo that the county carry, there's no reason why our courts cannot operate in the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi. Like, that should have been taken care of.
Right,
I uphold our customer service here to be kind of great. So when you were telling me about the Wi-Fi issues, I was about pulling my hair out.
High
'cause
rate, cause we,
By this time, we sold into the two,
right.
way
There's
ahead to
nowhere
where
anymore.
there's no reason why our courts, especially with the reputation we have in this state or just running as a county, for us to not be able. So thank you. That's
Yeah,
good to
thanks for
hear.
asking.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay,
Thank
motion
you so much.
carries. Excellent. All right, next up, we have item 8C, the Prosecuting Attorney's Office acceptance from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for the FY 24 to 26 Title 4E Cooperative Reimbursement Program. I need a motion. Commissioner Whitebird, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. And I see we have Betsy here from the prosecuting office, Ms. Haig. Are you gonna
Good morning.
Hi.
Kelly Collins, the chief of our juvenile justice division, is also here.
Welcome, Ms.
morning.
Collins.
Thank you. I can present if the committee wishes. Thank you for having me first and foremost. I am the chief of the Juvenile Justice Division here at the prosecutor's office. And for those of you who may not be familiar, the Juvenile Division is responsible for all cases involving juveniles under the age of 18. With regard to what is before you today in this reimbursement contract, specifically relating to the child abuse and neglect cases, those come before our family division jurists in Oakland County in the circuit court, and that comes by way of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So since 2009, we have engaged in a contract with the department or with the state to serve as legal consultant. Michigan law does require us to serve in that capacity, but we have contracted with them and gotten reimbursed for some of our services since I think it's 2009. And this is our most recent contract expires September 30th of this year, 2023. So this new reimbursement contract will cover October 1st through September 30th of 2026. There really are no noteworthy changes from the last contract. It still reimburses the county for the work of our assistant prosecutors at approximately an hourly rate of $175. Typically, on average, this arrangement brings in approximately $250,000 per year. The contract is for those 3 years, it's for a total of $900,000. So it does give us a cushion in case we perform services above and beyond what our normal approximation is. But it covers items such as trial preparation, petition review, trainings for the department, litigation at every stage of the process, actual reimbursement for costs of transcripts, appellate work on cases as needed. So this is really bringing in additional funding for the services that we already perform and that we're obligated to perform. Our obligation would still remain the same with or without this contract, but this is just a mechanism by which our county can be reimbursed for some of those services.
Okay, thank you. Do we have questions from anybody? Commissioner Cavell?
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, how are you?
So yesterday in PHNS, we talked a little bit about abuse and neglect, and from the defense side, can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. As I think I said yesterday, I know the question was, what are my impressions with regard to the defense bar and their obligations in performing their duties. So with child abuse and neglect cases, any parent that is a respondent in a proceeding that's being litigated, so in essence, a defendant, if you will, who's being alleged to have committed some sort of child abuse or neglect, is entitled to a court-appointed counsel. We do have court-appointed counsel that work in that capacity. In addition, the children that are involved in those cases also are entitled to court-appointed counsel. That's considered a legal guardian ad litem. So there are usually 2, 3, maybe even 4, depending on how many legal parents there are. Sometimes we have families with multiple fathers to the children or multiple mothers that are alleged to have committed abuse and neglect. What was asked is there have been requests in the past to increase maybe their compensation. And I was asked about my impressions with regard to that. Well, this contract or this request today doesn't really have anything to do with the defense bar aspect of it. What I do know is that we are quickly losing people who have decided to practice in this area of law. As far as I'm concerned, we're dealing with the most vulnerable in our communities. We're dealing with families and children who are at risk. And these attorneys are called upon to make really important decisions and to make really important observations as it relates to the children, where they're placed, their environments, what risks they have, and what services the family and the parents and the children may need. So it's a heavy lift, if you will, and it's my impression that they are not compensated commensurate with other court-appointed attorneys that might be appointed for adult criminal cases. I'd like to see that happen. I think that, like I said, we're losing people who have decided to practice in this area of law, and there's not really a big push or an incentive, if you will, for people to join in this area of practice. And since it relies almost exclusively on court-appointed attorneys, I think that that's a disservice to our communities.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner, anybody else? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You got 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have item 8D, acceptance from the state of Michigan of the fiscal year 2022 Homeland Security Grant Program. Moved by Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Rahman. Hi.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Rob Seeley, the Chief of Emergency Management. This is Angie Jantz, also from my office, Emergency Management Division. This is the acceptance of the annual Homeland Security Grant Program. This grant's been around since about 2006. This year, the grant's in the amount of $791,232, which includes 4 people, two people from my office, they're solution area planners that manage the grant, and 2 people from the Michigan DSEMIC, the Detroit Southeastern Michigan Intelligence and Information Center, which is located in Southfield. They're hired through the Sheriff's Office, but they're paid for through this grant.
Okay. Any questions from the floor?
Was this the one that was like $21,000 less than last year?
Yes, sir. This one's $21,000 less than last year. The amount fluctuates annually. It's a pass-through. It goes from FEMA through the state of Michigan to the UASI region, which is 6 counties around Metro Detroit and the city of Detroit. And then it's divided among us. So through those divisions, sometimes it's a little more, sometimes it's a little less. In 2006, the amount was about $6 million, and it's slowly come to this, and it's been this way for about the last 5 or 6 years.
But I mean, and we've had this for a long time.
Yes, sir.
It's seems fairly dependable, and
Yes, sir.
and staff is tied to it. But
Yes, sir.
we've no worries about it going away.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Seeing no other questions, let's prompt the vote.
You got 5 yeas and 0 nays.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next up is item 8E, acceptance from the U.S. Department of Justice of the FY 2023 Burn Discretionary Community Project. Moved by Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Rahman. Good morning.
Good morning. So this is a grant acceptance for $410,000 Just a little bit of background, we've been working on this item since 2022, and it actually came through Representative Slotkin's office. So we went through a number of rounds of requests, and thankfully they decided to fund it, and so we are here to ask for acceptance. As Commissioner Cavell pointed out yesterday, we have a short window because the grant goes through the end of this calendar year. So we're prepared as soon as the fiscal year starts and the bidding process with purchasing opens again. We're gonna be hitting the ground running with this list of items to purchase.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments? This is basically a training.
Yes, it's all training related. Most of the equipment, some of it will go in the jail, some will go in admin, but primarily into the training center.
Okay,
Was this,
Commissioner Wiper.
when you said it came through Slotkin's office, Congressperson Slotkin's office, was that part of the community grants or was this special for police and training?
It was part of the
Part of that.
community funding, yeah, so we
Okay.
had to, have submitted a number of proposals to the different representatives, and luckily this one got funded, so.
Awesome.
And when was the request for 410 or was it,
Yes,
okay?
yes, we actually got the full request, and I wanna say this, we might have requested it multiple years in a row, and
Yeah.
then it got funded, it got picked up the second year, so.
And I know they've spread them out
Mhm.
through the whole region, so that's nice.
Yes.
Good, excellent.
Good job.
Well, and at the time, so we did have the conversation, I think the first year they didn't fund it. And obviously, she has a huge region, but,
Right.
and only a portion of it was Oakland County, but our training center is right in her, obviously Brandon Township is in her district, so we were very thankful to get the funding.
Good job, thank you.
That's good. All right, let's prompt the vote.
You have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Motion carries, thank you. Okay, we're good. Next up is the 8F, the interlocal agreement with Oakland Community Health Network for the co-responder team program. Moved by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Wiper. All right,
Okay, so if you recall, we started a pilot program about 2 years ago, I think, where we teamed a co-responder up with our team in Pontiac that responds to mental health calls. The pilot has been wildly successful. We came back for a second year of funding last year, and now we're moving on to a 3-year agreement.
okay. Commissioner Powell.
I just want to inform my colleagues that yes, this program is doing us some justice in the city and helping us out tremendously with a lot of the, individuals we come into that have mental health challenges. So I'm encouraging my colleagues to please support this, please, thank you.
Commissioner Wiper, followed by Commissioner Cavell, followed by Commissioner Rahman.
I mean, this is a good thing. This is the way of life now. I mean, the sheriff always tells us that the jail is a lot of mental health, a lot of drugs, and to have first co-responders right on the scene diffuses a lot of problems and
Yep.
hitting it right at the point. And
That's very accurate, absolutely.
I think I said Commissioner Cavell and then Commissioner Rahman.
So do you guys have any thoughts or needs for an expansion of this? So what would that look like?
Obviously, I mean, we've had this conversation
Yeah.
several times, so funding, obviously, the bottom line is funding for it, so
It's
obviously,
see a need
working,
there, though.
yes, absolutely.
absolutely, it could be expanded, but obviously we need the dollars behind it to be able to implement it.
Okay, Commissioner Rahman?
Yeah, same point, I think this is wonderful what you're doing, I'm so glad that this is as successful as it is. We're really trying to advocate for more resources, more funding for mental health generally. Where that falls moving forward, we don't yet know, but if there is a way we can advocate for expanding the program, I mean, we certainly we'll try our best to do so, without any promises being made. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart as well, so happy to support it.
Yeah, I just have a question about metrics. How are we measuring success? How do we know that we're having that we're diverting people to the right places and we're not having as much, as many people going to the jail as we used to have and that sort of thing. Do you have a way that you're measuring success in this world?
Currently, I can only speak to, I know we're measuring how many calls and contacts they have. We'll have to figure out a way to measure. I'm sure we have some numbers on diversion. I don't have those in front of me. I was just looking though, since they've dedicated our co-responder to one particular deputy now, they've responded since the middle of July to about 137 calls. This was as of last week, so 137 different contacts, different people. Not sure the outcomes of all of those, but I will check into that and get you some numbers. But I know diversion is a part of it, for sure.
I'm just looking for overall metrics, how are you measuring? We all have a sense that this is working and that it's going in the direction we want, but in the future, we should be trying to measure and continuous improvement and all of that, so. Okay, Commissioner Powell.
Is that something you can request as the chair, or how does that work? I'm just saying, because I think that's.
I just sent them the message that we want them to, everybody else came into our budget reviews, and this is one thing I have said to the chair and to the various department heads. One of the things I really liked about our budget reviews was everybody came in with their KPIs, and after using them for a couple of years, they're really making a lot of sense and they're driving improvement, right? And so I'm always gonna ask that question, how are you measuring yourself and how are we driving improvement? So I'm really happy about the program. I'm, no bad news there. How are we gonna measure it going forward?
So in addition to her ask or her metrics she's requesting, I would love to know the numbers though. Like how many contacts, even if from detail of what was the type of contacts, so we kind of know where, what mental health services are we kind of helping with the individuals? Is that something you could break, like, he's a doctor, so that's why I turned to him. So just whatever data that is privy for us to, we data people, so I would love to see how that is going.
Yeah, do you have plans to do some reporting on this in a few months or something? So, yeah, send a report, generate a report.
And I think it'll be even more a benefit for us eventually. I probably will request the same for numbers or information to be shared at the city.
Got
it. Since that person is stationed at the Pontiac station. Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, let's prompt the vote.
You have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thanks.
Thank you.
And then the last one, excuse me, we have is item 8G, acceptance from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for the 2023 Pontiac Integrated Urgent Care Agreement. Commissioner Hoffman, Commissioner Cabell. Good morning.
Good morning. Almost afternoon. Thank you for having us. We're really excited to talk about this project. And so just a little information. I'll call them our team, right? It's a small part of the team, but our operational team. So I'd like for them to introduce themselves and then we'll do a little presentation.
Yeah, good to see everybody. Scott Stewart, Director of Strategic Initiatives for Honor Community Health.
Good morning, Kate Guzman, Administrator of Medical Services for the Health Division.
And Adam Genovi, Chief of Operations at OCHN.
So we're gonna call the team. This is the partners that are around this project. Obviously, we can't do this alone because it is a big lift. But what we're looking to do is accept $5 million from Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to implement what we're calling an integrated urgent care. And by integrated urgent care, we're talking about bringing primary care as well as mental health under one roof. So we talked about mental health services a few minutes ago. Our first location will actually be in the city of Pontiac. We're still finalizing our location, but our expectation would be downtown, easy for people to get to, no barriers. So when you think about a traditional urgent care, we talk a lot about you come in, right? We triage, we treat you, and then you're kind of put back on the street, right? But our goal in this integrated urgent care is very different. So we're gonna do that same thing. We're gonna bring that client in as they walk in, no wrong door. We're gonna triage them from both sides. Primary care is mental health. Maybe they need both, maybe they need one or the other. We're gonna treat them for that acute or that situation that's going on, but then we're going to provide them with resources. Whether it's connection to a primary care physician, maybe it's a connection to a mental health provider. They can start that process right there. They're not gonna have to pick up a phone and call to get into the system. Those individuals will be in the house with us. And then we're gonna have people that are gonna follow up. We're gonna ensure that that person, when they walk out the door, they have the resources, they have connected to the services, but we're gonna follow up to make sure they got connected to the services. What we see a lot, and I know our partners do as well, we connect people to resources, but they never get there, right? For whatever reason, maybe it's the wrong time for them to accept the information. Maybe, they've heard something and they're just not getting what they need. And so we're gonna make sure that they meet those needs. This is really gonna be an access point, right, into these services. Again, partners, Honor, as well as OCHN, which is always a great partner of ours. OLSA is also gonna be a partner around the table to help connect to those resources. St. Joe and McLaren have been part of this since we started talking about it. So we've really looked at, a whole community approach. I know there's a lot of questions about sustainability. So the $5 million that we're getting from MDHHS is really to look at that first 2.5, 3 years, right? The operational piece of it. But our goal is to look for grants and other sustainability, like SAMHSA, right? We know this is a really unique project. People are really looking at opportunities to do things similar to what we're doing. So we don't know what the payer mix is going to be as somebody walks in the door, right? Are they gonna be uninsured? Are they insured? We don't know. And so we know it's gonna take the time, similar to what we've done with our Oakland 360, right? So we brought the same partners under our roof to do, primary care, and we did the same thing. The money was provided up front, but that sustainability occurred because of billing and other grants that they were able to obtain. So we will be looking at that as we move through it. We are looking at bringing in a contractor that's very familiar with FQHC, mental health resources, and what is the best way to sustain this moving forward. So we'll also be looking at that as part of it. Another question is location. As I said, we're looking at 2 or 3 locations. We'll be back, right, to talk about as this progresses. We still have a lot of operational thoughts that we need to put together to make this sustainable. Our goal is to ribbon cut this time next year or early fall of 2024. So we got a lot of work to do, but these 3 right here have already done a big lift in just the last couple of months once the information was provided that we would be getting the money to really look at those operational pieces, so.
Okay. So I'll open it up to the commission. Anybody have any questions?
It's a good program, that's all I have to say.
Thank you,
Nice
thank you.
Yeah. Same thing, yeah, no question, just I think it's great that we're doing this. And all 5 million is coming from outside funds, but county is not providing anything, which is another great piece of this. Is it primarily, I guess, is the money more going towards the physical aspect of the development of this? Is it going towards staffing? I guess maybe just a little bit of a breakdown so we understand exactly how that 5 million is being allocated.
Yeah, it's kind of a third and a third. We did put some contingency on it because we just don't know what location we're gonna be at yet and how much work is gonna have to go into the infrastructure. And so a lot, that includes rent, right? The 5 million that we have right now includes it all. So obviously there is staffing. We don't want someone to come in and just be directly referred to another program, right? So we wanna have behavioral health on site, right? Primary care on site. But the other part is we wanna make sure is if there is a service in the community, right? Like OCHN provides some amazing at RCC here, right here on campus, that there's already a program available that those people are getting connected to those services. So, but our goal is to have staffing on site. We will have a project manager that's actually a county position, meaning we're overseeing it, so that's kind of our role in it. But it's a little bit supplies, right? We know we're gonna need some medical equipment. We'd love to find a location that already has all this stuff set up and ready to go, but we know we're gonna have to do some infrastructure, whether it's paint, sprucing a space up, once we acquire that space.
And then what is the ability for other providers in the community and the county to connect with you in terms of being resources or avenues for you to direct patients, whatever the needs are, mental, physical, or otherwise.
Just jump in if you wanna answer this too.
I mean, I really think the Oakland 360 initiative, if you're not familiar with it, it's the perfect example. It started with Honor, and then it's been growing, so then the Oakland Community Health Network, Gary Bernstein Health Center, housing, so we've been growing this Oakland 360 program, and then I picture the urgent care to be the same way. So as partners are being identified as key partners that either need to be on site or just very warm handoffs, that's kind of the model where we have a point person at that agency, a point person at our agency. We're doing warm handoffs. So either it's a co-location or just a very, very warm handoff between them. I picture that model growing and growing as we establish the needs.
Great, thanks.
Commissioner Cavell.
You were talking about how to make sure people get connected to resources and services. Does that mean you'll have a bunch of community health workers? What does that look like? I don't know.
So what was the question? I didn't hear it all the way up here.
Oh, that if they're going to be connecting to services, is that what a community health worker is? And can she explain what that is and what that looks like? Cause I've heard that term, but would like to.
Yeah, I can cover that. Yeah, we do plan to have, I think one part of the model is that just like there may be people who come in who are just in need of housing that day or just in need of food. So we plan to have as part of this, that referral, that on-site person that is a community health worker. A community health worker, you know, depending on the definition, is essentially like a resource navigator, but is from the community and is able to help in that way. So we plan to have that community health worker there and then also those community health workers for follow-up. And so both ways we're kind of getting them the services at the time and then also following up with them through community health workers as well.
And that's also an opportunity, so Medicaid, starting October 1st, you'll be able to bill for community health workers, what they do in the community, which is very new. So we're really all excited about that because that also provides more resources in the community, connected with the community, and you can also get reimbursement for them as well, so, yep.
Commissioner Powell?
Do you all know the potential site or sites you're vetting in the city? And if so, where?
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah, at this time,
If
we
you
can
don't
talk
want
about it
to,
off, yeah,
okay, great.
so we're
Okay,
still in
that's fine.
negotiations, and
Okay.
so we'd like to kind of, until that's solidified and finalized, to kind of keep that quiet.
Okay, well, I'll just wait till y'all make a
decision.
Anybody else? I'm wondering about timing. When do you plan to stand this up and have it operational so the public knows that there's a place they can go?
Yeah, you wanna, well, like I said, this is, it's still very ongoing, right? This is our first process. Our goal, we would love to do a soft launch, right? Not necessarily ribbon cutting next year, right? Mid-spring, I always push them summer with the official, right, ribbon cutting where we can all say, we're open, come to us, in fall of next year. Now, if things move faster than that, right, we just don't know once we get the location. If we don't have to do any demo and maybe it's just paint, we could be speeding this up, you know, a little bit faster. But it really all depends on the location, which is our next piece, right, that we really have to solidify and finalize, and then we'll be able to provide a better timeline.
So I guess I would like to request that you come back in a few months and tell us where you're at with all of this. 3
We would
months,
love-
6 months,
We
when
would
you
love
think
to, we
it's-
can't wait, so we're excited about
When
this
you think you've
project.
got news to tell us, please contact staff and we'd like to hear how this is going. I'm really encouraged by what we're seeing today in terms of the police, in terms of public health, I mean the sheriffs, but in terms of public health, everything that is community focused in terms of uplifting those who need help. I think that's, I'm really proud of Oakland County for stepping out in this direction, so.
And you know, having OCHN as our partner in this and OCHN as the partner in that, you see a lot of synergy there too, where we can work a lot of that same network, so.
Yeah, I think it's great. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, excuse me, let's prompt the vote.
You have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay,
you
motion
all
carries.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. We're gonna move on to item 9, but I'd like to take a couple minute break to drink water. So
Recess.
should I take a recess for 5 minutes? are reinstating the Finance Committee meeting. We are moving on to item 9, Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee recommendations. Item 9A is the 2023 and 2024 Supplemental Collective Bargaining Agreement for employees represented by the United Auto Workers Local 889 UAW, representing Board of Commissioner non-supervisory employees. I need a motion. Moved by Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Good morning.
Good morning, or, well, we're in afternoon now, so that's good, we're halfway done.
Been here forever.
Nice to see everyone again, I'm Dan Kleppner, I'm our Chief of Labor Relations, with me is our intern, Zach Newwood. We're trying to teach only good habits too, well, jury's still out on that, so we'll see. But today I'm here before you on a relatively hopefully easy matter. It's right in your backyard. It's your Board of Commissioners employees. They have organized. We have tentative supplemental agreement. The master, of course, has been negotiated a year ago. That's not up again until I believe September of 2024. And I would just like to take a moment, walk the commissioners through what we're looking at for the supplemental and then entertain any questions you may have. So first and foremost, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware this has no no financial impact on the county at all. It's just an agreement to organize along with the many other UAW employees. First of all, the first portion recognizes who is going to be part of it. It's all non-supervisory merit system employees of the Board of Commissioners. It also memorializes the wage scale. We actually have an updated one because I guess there was one position that was outdated or attrited out, so that is going to be reflected as the current and proper wage scale. There's also a request, which I don't think anyone has disputed, to erect a bulletin board, which is visible to all union members. They can see various union activities, business, upcoming meetings, etc. There's also a proposal for an alternative work schedule, but that is subject to the approval of management. So if you have a special meeting or something that is outside the norm of someone's 410, there's an ability to deny or decline that 410 schedule for that week to make sure that there's appropriate coverage. Other departments have done it a number of different ways. So if your day off, so to speak, is Wednesday and you have a special meeting, just take your day Thursday or Monday, whatever. So it's pretty flexible. And lastly, it deals with what occurs on holiday pay and overtime with those alternative schedules. And other than that, there's a signature block and it's a relatively straightforward supplement, but I'm happy to hear any questions that anyone may have.
Okay, I'll open it up to the commissioners. Commissioner Cavell, followed by Commissioner Powell.
I did not get your name, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Dan Kleppner, I'm our Chief of Labor Relations. I used to be with Corp Counsel, so maybe I look a little bit familiar, now I shifted over to HR.
I recall your position being created, right? Because it's relatively new, last couple of
Could
years?
be, could be, yeah, I think so, I think I'm the first one to fill the hot seat.
Yeah. Well, how is it going? That's more what I'm curious about.
Oh, thank you for asking. So yeah, it's rounding about a year now. I'd like to think that we're making a difference. I kind of take a DEI approach to human resources, and I like to think that my office is now being thought of less as like the principal's office where you just go to get in trouble, and more of almost like an ombudsman of some sort. So I can try to make a fair resolution. I don't always come down on the employee's side, but I try to get to yes more than say no, and like to think that we've been able to craft some creative solutions to make everybody's workplace a little better.
Excellent.
Thank you for asking.
Commissioner
Appreciate that.
Powell,
Thank you.
followed by Commissioner Woodward.
I wanted to say, it's finally good to put a face with your name. So thanks for coming before us. And I just want to share with my colleagues that you may not even remember, but I did reach out to a couple individuals working in our human resource, and I think you were one. And I just want to say that the situation that I reported per department did get resolved, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna put that department on blast, but for the most part, I think, I'm pretty sure you had some involvement in that, and I just wanna thank you. So I'm letting everybody know he is doing his job, so thank you very much.
Thank you for saying that, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and at risk of being ruled out of order, just respond to what Cavell, I was talking about, just more broadly about the role that Dan's playing these days. Not just did we create this position, but it was done strategically to do exactly what Dan said, is to mitigate a grievance before it becomes a real grievance. If we can work it out beforehand, that saves time, it saves reliance on outside counsel and other things, and I can tell you, from the labor side and from management side across the county, people hands down say this is so much better. So this is a testament to your leadership, whether you sided with them or not. So I want to say thank you for your service and keep up the good work.
Thank you, I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Kind of sounds like people need to be heard, you know, is partly a real big part of your job.
I think that's very fair. And actually, to be honest, I did not quite understand the value of that myself until I stood in this role. So I think that you hit it right on the head. Sometimes listening and trying to talk through problems is very helpful.
Good.
Nope, brings down the tension.
One more thing, I'd be specific to the issue.
Yes.
So I want to say, like, there's not an event that creates the need here. We've got incredible staff that worked at putting together a great working tool. They'll be represented by UAW. I think it's fantastic. I think they've already approved all that. And we're here to, agree that, and management has the abilities for us to accomplish our job. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Commissioner Powell.
And I also want to support our chair because I did just briefly, communicate with a couple workers that work for us in our department, and they are pleased with this. So just to share with our colleagues.
Excellent. Okay, anybody else? All right, let's prompt the vote.
It didn't come up. Yes.
You have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the week.
And then next up.
Thanks for having me. Expose them to as much as possible, learn as much as possible.
Hope we didn't bore you. Welcome, come back anytime.
Good luck, buddy. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have item 9B, adopting the countywide elected official compensation for 2024. I'll take a motion. Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Okay. Who wants to talk about this?
Nothing.
And I need a motion. I got a motion, right? Does anybody have any questions or comments? Commissioner Woodward.
I would just say, and I know there were some news stories about this, so I just want to speak to it, that the way that we have historically done this, we make certain that our employees are taken care of first. The budget that we will be approving later this month has a general increase. If permissible and affordable, that we extend that, whatever that rate is extended across the board. I've held the strong position that all elected officials should be treated similarly, so whatever elected officials getting in this general increase, all elected officials will. The board is a uniquely structured entity for our new member that's here, but that by law, we have to take act before the start of a term. So we approved basically this schedule for the current and the upcoming fiscal year, and prior to the next term, we have to approve for the next term. And so these are all consistent, and it's the same increase across the board. You will notice in the 10-year history, I think it's important to realize the elected official that has taken the most sacrifice is the Board of Commissioners.
Yep.
That's true.
Okay, Commissioner Rahman.
So yesterday, I know this came up and it was just a clarification point. It is 3%, not 5%. Is that correct?
That was last year.
So yeah, so the 22-23 budget was 5% across the board.
Correct.
And this is, we're approving 3% for the 23-24 fiscal year.
Got
That
it,
was-
and that was my understanding as well, I just wanna clarify, only because in the background it keeps mentioning this 5%, that's what I wasn't sure.
If you look at this,
Yeah, the 5% was last, and that was across the board.
2023, okay.
I
That was
gonna
across the
show you
board.
that 10-year history, it'll
Right,
show you.
and I
Oh,
did,
you
and I did see that,
Okay, okay,
but
okay,
it was
I didn't
blank, so if you pull up the 10-year history actually, I believe this is what we're voting on right here, the 2024
Oh,
right?
countywide, what's theirs?
Blank, so that's why I assumed that was.
It's blank because we have to take action. That's what we're approving right now, which is gonna be 3, which will be the
3%,
same as
Okay.
the general
Correct.
and
Got it.
and 1 for commissioners.
Perfect, that's the only thing I,
It does put us, I mean, I would just acknowledge that it puts, there's been there's been a desire to wanna be able to address this annually. The fact that you have, and frankly, as the commission term goes to 4 years after the next election, the way the law is currently structured, that for the next 4 years, that's gotta get put in there. And like, how do you do that? I mean, that's kind of a long forecast, and so the hope is that the legislature will give some flexibility. I mean, and even if they wanna put caveats, it's like, well, what you do for other elected officials, as long as it's done across the board, that's permissible, but right now, because we are the governing body, we have to take action before the start of the term. We can adjust, you can increase up, but you can't increase down for.
10-year average is 2.2%.
Right, that's right. So, yes, but to your point, the action we're taking is for all the county officials that we haven't set their rate. I believe I think that in the resolution, it talks about like judges and the way that our relationship, we pay 50% of whatever the state salary is, and that's our contribution, so we're not really touching that. This is just for our countywide elected officials.
Anybody else? I just wanna put a little editorial comment in myself, as chair of finance, I guess I get to do that. These are not easy jobs, being county commissioner. And our districts got bigger in the last election, these salaries, in my opinion, are very modest compared to the level of work that we have to do and the amount of people that we have to deal with on a wide range of subjects. So I recognize our public wants us to make sure we're being fiscally responsible, and I work really hard to do that, and so does everybody else around this table. But I also feel like we should be compensated adequately so we get quality people running for office to get in these seats. Because it's important that we have people who care and are hardworking and wanna do this for the right reasons. And I think that's who we have right now, and I think we should be adequately compensated. And it's really not a party situation, a political situation, it's really about doing the work. And I commend all my commissioners, especially the members of the finance committee that have been here through all of these hearings and done a great deal of work to make sure that we're spending the county's money the way we should be and not being frivolous with it. And so I wanna thank everybody, and I want to say to the public, you can rest assured, we're working really hard to make sure we're taking care of Oakland County's budget. So that's my editorial comment for the day. And with that, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
Yes.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion carries. Commissioner Powell.
I just have one quick question for the chair. Are we still looking at the compensation thing for the elected member when that study, or is that something we're tabled? I
That's a
know
good
it's
question.
tabled, but.
Yeah, so I mean, actually, I have been working with staff to pull out like what are the models, so what Commissioner Powell's referencing is that,
Due to the
I mean,
inflation.
in part, is like, this is an uncomfortable political process, someone has to do it. There are 2 ways to do it, the way that we have been doing it, or have a compensation committee that how frankly a lot of other governments can do it. And so, I mean, there's a state provision for doing that and a process. And we will be looking at that and maybe bringing a recommendation next year if we want to explore that.
Got it,
But
okay.
I would say it's still early and in discussion, we'll see what it looks next year.
Okay, thank you.
Potential, and it looks at not, I mean, again, it's all the electeds, like this is what it's going to be and diffuses the politics. I know everyone here can defend their votes on everything, and so another status quo or a better way in depoliticizing that process.
Right.
I think there's some pluses and minuses.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, that's the end of Lago. Let's move on to item 10. Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee recommendations. Item 10A is the Building Management System Replacement Project, 7th phase. Moved by Commissioner Wyford, supported by Commissioner Powell. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Yeah,
Good to see everybody again. We're here today to present the part of our, every year at this time, we come to bring this part of this project, which is the 7th phase of the building management, which is our control systems for all of our buildings that was over 35 years old, and operating systems were all obsolete. So this is part of our CIP plan. The project's $600,000. We're focused on finishing up the courthouse, and then we'll be moving over to the jail with this funding, and I can take any questions that you may have at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Cavell.
I just have two questions. One, the 7th phase, are the contractors the same as the 6th and or previous phases? If so, why? Or why not? And then the second question is, it talks in the documents about it being, creating efficiency, right? Like the HVAC system making things cost less.
Okay.
Do you know how much less things cost now? As a result of the
The first
improvements?
question is, it's the same company that did the original bid and installation that we went out for, so we continued based on their work that they were doing and their efficiencies. It doesn't make sense to, go out to bid, have someone else do it, and you don't have the same type of installation that we've had in other buildings. So yes,
Okay.
it's the same group. The efficiencies that we're getting with the BMS systems are our run times. We got alarms that our maintenance staff get, dirty filters, so we can respond quicker to those filter situations, or a belt that might be not working right. Those alarms come in and allows them to respond quicker. And tightening all those systems down with new equipment, we are seeing energy savings.
Okay, thank you.
And I didn't introduce Steve Foster. He's our project manager that's been running the project for the last few years. So Steve Foster, sorry about that, Steve.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay, seeing no one, let's prompt the vote.
Yes.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Thanks
Thank you.
very much.
Appreciate the questions and the time. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
I almost had to steal your banana, I was getting
Thanks, man.
I don't say how old I am, but Mr. Murphy there, I was his baseball coach.
No way.
Little league, yeah.
Older than dirt, that's. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That's so funny.
They were in your budget here. It's time to get your
My brother, who's the tennis coach at Rochester High, he had Gary Peters in his class when he was in high school, yeah. So, small world out here.
Truly is.
You live here long enough, everybody comes through.
Yeah, watch what you say.
Okay, so next up, we have item 11. What we're all here for, the fiscal year 2024 to 2026 Oakland County budget. So we're gonna start with item 11A, the FY 2024-2026 County Executive Recommended Budget. I need a motion. Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Fix me. Okay. And then we move on to the amendments, right? Okay. So first up, we have amendment under section A, amendments made pursuant to adoption by separate resolution. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This is Kyle June.
virtually. I apologize, I can't be there in person today. But Kim and Ebru are executive recommendation to you in July. So there's no actual action that has to be taken here. This was something we thought we could streamline. All the amendments that have been that are listed here, you've previously voted on, and the board has voted on and adopted. So this is really just an informational item, but we'd certainly be happy to answer any questions regarding any specific amendments on the list.
Okay, so first up, I need a motion on this amendment. Commissioner Woodward, supported by Commissioner Cavell. And then I'll open it to questions. Commissioner Woodward.
So, I mean, just as a summary, these are all resolution. This is, since the budget was presented, action that's taken place to be reflected in for this annual budget and then the subsequent 3 years or 2 years.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay.
We've already done this, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Weipert, followed by Commissioner Rahman.
And some of these were things we just did. I mean, the agreement with PAX, People's Express, I mean, that just came up, and Indigent Defense Fund, that just came up. So a lot of these things have really been recent.
Right.
Commissioner Rahman.
So just a clarification point. So today Alexandra came in front of us and asked for, the 3 IT people for this next year's budget. Is that commitment as well, or is that completely separate? That came up in our right today. It's all
Sure. So this is a function of the fact that our budget is rolling and gets amended as things come up during the year. So the list you have before you is things that have been formally adopted by the full board between actually going back, I think, to June 1st probably until the last board meeting. So amendments that are adopted now between now and the end of September 30th, we will incorporate into the final adopted budget, when that's adopted by the board at the end of September.
Okay.
So that would include things on the agenda today.
Perfect.
Okay, Commissioner Woodward.
Yeah, and I think, Commissioner Weipert brought up the point that we just approved the contract with PEX. You'll see it only in the 1 year, and it's because that for all those agreements, those are 1 year appropriations. So when we will eventually get to renewing it, it will show up in the subsequent years. But it's listed as 0 now because we haven't appropriated years 25 and 26.
Right. Okay.
Correct.
Anybody else on this first series of amendments? Okay. If not, let's go ahead and prompt the vote. I think I should have brought my umbrella in with me.
You got 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay. Motion carries. Excellent. Okay, we move on to item Section B, Human Resources Recommended Amendments. I need a motion for that. Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Do you have any questions about these?
I can just comment briefly. Schedule B is simply any amendments that have a personnel related aspect. There's a single amendment here regarding a salary increase as a result of a job audit for a position actually within the Board of Commissioners budget. So technical in nature and just one amendment there.
Any questions, comments? Commissioner Goodell?
If I'm reading it right, someone is going to get paid $9,000 less? Is that what that job audit found?
No, it's actually an increase, the negative 9,279 you're seeing is the reduction in contingency,
Got it.
which is going to offset the salary increase.
Okay. Good for them. Thank you.
If there's no other comments or questions, let's prompt the vote, please.
You have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Next, we have section C, Finance Committee Amendment Summary and Supporting Documentation, 8/31/23. Moved by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Powell. Okay,
So section C consists of a series of amendments that are really just technical corrections or updates to the budget, either things, where we missed a small dollar change in the original recommendation or new information has become available. The one item I would highlight here is amendment number 4 for the probate court. Amendment number 5 for the probate court. This is something we had meant to address earlier and was raised in the probate court's budget hearing, but this provides $50,000 from a central capital outlay pool to address the furniture and security issues that they raised in their hearing. So this amendment will provide the funding to take care of that. And again, we'd be happy to answer any questions on any specific items on this list.
excellent, thank you. I'm happy to hear that you're gonna take care of probate court, because what they showed us was kind of frightening, so it's good that this is gonna be resolved for them. Commissioner Cavell, did you have a question?
Yeah. I think I have an old thing on my, because all these lines are zeros. So do I?
So they show as zeros at the summary level just because they all have an offset, where you're moving dollars from one part of the budget to another. So if you scroll through the individual, the individual amendments, you can see how much dollars are moving between line items.
Thank you.
But there's no net impact on the general fund here.
Gotcha.
So
Commissioner Rahman.
So some of the things that we've been sort of discussing since our budget wrap up, if we're able to incorporate any of those, and Chair Woodward, I know we've been talking a little bit about some of them. If and when any of those come to fruition, where does that kind of fall within all of
I'm gonna speak to those, once we get these done, I'm gonna speak to that before you vote on advancing this. And there's some that we're gonna take up, right now, next, after section C, basically, yeah.
Is that when I should make my little thing too?
After we do the amendments here first.
Okay, if nobody else has anything on this, we'll go ahead and prompt the vote. You okay, Commissioner Whiteford?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. So moving on to the Board of Commissioners, Special Projects Designation for Sponsors and Sponsorships and Programs. I need a motion. That's Commissioner Woodward, supported by Commissioner Powell. Okay?
So, we've had this combined 300,000. We are going to separate them out into 2 buckets. And I know there's been ongoing conversation of how do we want to strategically sponsor, what type of events do we sponsor, how does it fit into a more comprehensive plan? We have ability to do that, but by splitting it out, there'll be a sponsorship space and there'll be a special project space. And a budget will be developed within those 2 things. And so this takes the 300 and breaks it into 2 line items. Doesn't add money, take money away, just puts it into 2 groups.
Commissioner Powell?
What is the total budget number, for the commission projects? 300 now?
Well, it was 300, and so, I mean, but it allowed to support the sponsorship and the special project. It was being pulled out of the same one, so we're gonna break that 300 into two, 150,
Wasn't our
150.
budget now higher than that?
Overall budget is, that's just for the special projects and the sponsorships. That's
I
separate
know, what
item.
was the total amount this year? Wasn't it like 1 point something?
Well, what,
There was
you wanna speak, yeah, there's,
$600,000-ish in the non-departmental, which was a limited time,
which is a carryover
right,
from
and it was
past.
for a limited time.
That's
I'm
separate from this.
confused, hold on, I'm confused. So the commissioner project fund, what is that amount we've been putting in there? Cause what was over $1 million?
300 and whatever thousand,
So,
but then there was from previous years, there was a limited time of carryover,
got it,
and that was like 600,000 something.
So that's where the $1 million.
got it,
And
okay,
that's been-
okay,
and that's
okay,
been
that's
coming-
why it was so high before.
That's been coming down, that's like, that's
Got
one.
it, so now it's coming down, and now we're at 300 grand for the commissioner projects and stuff.
Split in these two buckets.
Okay,
There's still some there's still a little bit of carryover, but that those funds are draining.
so for example, if it is like 100 grand still left, plus the 300, it'll be 400 now. Is that what we're, okay, so, okay. In the past with events that we've done, have we looked at the type of events and stuff like that, or that's something we're gonna look at moving forward? The reason why I'm saying that is because when you break the 3 and 3, already off rip, I think of Arts, Beats and Eats. That's our biggest one.
So
So it's like when you, yeah, so I'm just thinking like when we break it down, it's like, okay, so I'm not saying that we shouldn't or should, but I'm just saying, is that something we're gonna look at next, like what type of things and all of that and figure that out? Because now that goes into his concern from earlier, as far as us really kind of tailoring it to be more strategic. And of course, I know we're gonna do it because we got less money now, so. Got it.
So short answer, yes.
Okay.
And in a perfect world, it'd be like, this is what we're planning for next year. And then have an opportunity, instead of like kind of coming and responding to the moment, it's like, this is what we're trying to do. This is how it aligns with an economic development strategy. This is how it aligns with making sure that that Oakland County remains this great place to be and play and all, and support local economic development activity. And look at it holistically instead of looking at things in individual buckets.
Got it.
Commissioner Cavell?
To that, is there any thinking or interest among, I guess us, but really you two, right? Cause you're kind of the ones that read it with Mike Keys, but to see there are deadlines for some of these, so that then it does inspire us as a team to kind of get our poop in a group a little bit more, so that it isn't this rolling thing like, hey, I heard this thing, and then it's kind of I kind of accidentally thought, our district could sponsor the thing or support this innovative program as a pilot, blah, blah, blah. And maybe, what do you all think about that as by December 1st or January 1st of the new fiscal, by the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year, have your applications in for receiving some of these monies so it can help you and the budget folks plan better?
What I would like to say to that is, I think over the past year or two, we've gotten better about requesting. Being able to say what we want, when we want it by, how much money and so on. And I've been working with Mike Keys on that, and y'all are putting in a request in those formats and stuff, so I think that's a good step. I like separating this into sponsorships and special projects because I'd like to define the two separately. And I see one, special projects especially, as being smaller dollar numbers, like, but not necessarily. Whereas sponsorships, Arts, Beats and Eats is a good one, that's a big one. Should that only be Board of Commissioners sponsoring that? Or since it's Oakland County, maybe EDI or Economic Development I would like to have these conversations about who who is part of sponsorships? Because I think that's a bigger thing and maybe the Board of Commissioners shouldn't be the only ones talking about it. Whereas special projects I look at, or even smaller sponsorships, like what you do out in Lyon Township or South Lyon with the Kite Fest, and you did with the lights in Wixom, and but and those are like $10,000 kinds of buckets of money as opposed to 50,000 or 100,000. So I would like to have an ongoing discussion of what that all looks like, how those fit, and yeah, timing is another piece of it that I think we could incorporate. So yes and more to come, I guess, is what I would say. Commissioner Whitman.
And Manager, you said something that sparked, a reminder of a conversation I've had with the executive office of like working together, because it's like when some of these things have happened, it's like, well, it'd been really great if actually we were more involved, because we've got a public health department that's got resources that can bring to bear. And really pulling all the assets. I know that the conversation generally happened around this table, but there is definitely interest in like, let's have like a shared criteria. Let's look at this holistically. Maybe in the end that it goes, Commissioner Hoffman's like, it can stay here, thank you very much, and we'll make the decision. But also, maybe it makes sense to be structurally warehoused somewhere else, and we can have that conversation, but instead of it just being a conversation around this table involving all the departments of the county. And I've committed to yes, let's have that, which is why that is one of the impetus of let's look at the next year and what we're looking in. Let's look at our Main Street operation. Let's look at our economic development operation. Let's look at what's the outreach activities that all of our departments are doing. Are there some that make more synergy? Is there a rating, a criteria, rubric to apply to things? And to be strategic about it.
Agreed. Commissioner Howell.
Just a functionality type question, but in the sponsorship space, don't sometimes Executive Coulter get asked to sponsor things on his own? And have we ever looked to kind of partner with projects in that type of way, or he really don't get into that? It's for me too, from an educational standpoint, because I just thought he did probably.
I don't speak through executive, because go talk to the board. They don't have, obviously there is some. Obviously there's things in which our health department shows up and takes up a booth at a fair or
got it.
something like
Okay,
that. So
right.
departments are doing things, and I think it's probably a good idea to look at it broadly, where is and to the extent that we can help make these events better, to invite more people and have more economic impact. That's when I say strategic, that's what I mean. And we want to make sure it's accessible to everybody. We don't want them just in one area, but just spread out throughout the county, and again, showcase Oakland County. As the place that where you should be and live and work and do all your things and excavate.
Yeah. And for me, the special projects and the smaller dollar figures, I think it's really important that each commissioner have the ability to do something specific in their local communities if requested, to educate the public that we're here and we are supportive and we are involved in things that are going on, and from a selfish point of view, to let people know who we are and what we do and all of that, and really spread the Board of Commissioners' work out into the local communities. I know when we talked about the Light Festival in Wixom, well, we've never really done anything like that in Wixom, so that seemed to make a lot of sense, and that says to the city of Wixom, your Board of Commissioners is supporting you. Not to say when you were the commissioner, we weren't supporting Wixom, but it's just one of those examples of Wixom knows now that Oakland County is out here and supporting them. The Wixom residents, just by that little green thing by the light show, right? I think that is important, that the communities know that we are at their level, at the community level. We're not some, entity they don't know anything about. Commissioner Rahman.
Do we have a process in place? So if we're supporting these things, it's assumed on my part that we would get recognition or a sign or something to indicate that, hey, look, we are a sponsor or supporter. Is it automatically done every single time? And I don't know.
It's expected. And the host commissioner is expected to be there and invite all of us.
Absolutely.
And I can just This is Mike Keys again from the BOC staff, Commissioner Rahman. I just want to let you know that certainly Andrea and our team works to build agreements or even simply invoices with these organizations that does have that laid out in terms of exactly how the Board of Commissioners will be recognized for their contributions. So each one certainly is a bit different, but we do have a tracking system that allows us to make sure that the board is represented, or their contribution is represented.
Commissioner Powell.
Everyone knows I'm big on trying to help market us as commissioners in our district. So my question is more so a staffing question. When we have these commissioner projects that we sponsor, is there anything that we can do in a social media creation format to say, hey, I've secured this for this project and they created, or if we can't do it from a staffing point, it's for you, Dave, tell me, is this something that we can do on our own as commissioners and create that post to say, oh, we secured this for this project?
We definitely.
I'm just saying from a marketing standpoint,
We can
because-
definitely have staff do it and
Okay.
help support commissioners to communicate this stuff.
It's being.
It's already in progress.
It's in progress to be done, okay,
It's
great.
already,
It's
yeah,
already like,
been done and continuing.
Okay, well, I'm gonna specifically request, cause y'all know I done got a lot of projects supported in my district, and I'll be in contact with communication to see how that work moving forward. And one thing I do wanna encourage my colleagues, yes, you all know that I am a district that has a lot of needs. I have a lot of organizations that do fall short on a lot of resources in that city. And so I'ma just say this, I do thank you all for allowing me to, because I know I had a lot of project requests, but at the same time, it's just I have a district that has a lot of needs and they are slighted resources with these events and organizations, or they'll back out. Like I've seen this stuff happen. And so I'm gonna be cautious moving forward because I see the number is declined. But I do want to encourage you all to get out in your communities and just try to see who need help, this, third, the other, because that's how I know too. And I do attend every event that we put money, and they even ask me to come to events to where I am marketed with whatever they got going on, pictures, whatever. So it kind of go both ways to let you all know. But thank you all for your support.
All right. Any other comments, questions?
I just wanted to say, it sounds like from hearing you both speak, Dave and Gwen, that it's moving from like sponsorships, they'll be called that, but to more like community outreach and like coordination, right? Cause you're talking about, well, maybe health will be with a van at this thing and then this and that. And also instead of it being a sponsor that's like, hey, look at us, it's, hey, look at us because we're a resource for you, and we've kind of helped channel these things to be at the Wixom Light Show or the whatever because the county's trying to help you out or work with you. It's a great place to reach people. If I'm understanding you right with the like coordination part.
I would say the coordination
And I know
makes
it's a
us more
slow
strategic.
steps.
Yeah, that's what I said. I wouldn't say it as a radical shift in things.
Right.
But allowing that to be part of the criteria we're looking at to be more strategic, to have more impact.
Okay.
And I think the events, I mean, we're supporting these events and doing great work, and I think coordination, and we should always be pushing ourselves to how do we have greater impact.
Right.
So I wouldn't say it's a change, I would call it a more strategic way of deploying these resources.
Understood.
So an example that could be good to support you would be like the RAP program. Like you have a lot of these fun-fested kid events, and our youth and rec department has a program called the RAP program. Bounce houses, kid games, whatever you can think of, rock climbing, they bring that stuff, and that's a resource, and it's first come, first serve, and but it helps our communities to be able to display these type of things when sometimes their event can't cover their budgets and stuff. So that is something like we use the resource from there. So actually, guess what? Angela Powell got direct to come out there, and that is an advertisement for you, and I'm big on that. So yeah, so that's just a breakdown of something, of another department that had a resource that we used and we could benefit off of it. Commissioners and Parks and Rec, we did it together.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the sale. Sorry, I'm marking myself very well.
You do, I see you on my Facebook feed like 4 times a day, so that's good. All right, no other comments or questions, let's prompt the vote on this one.
You have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
All right. Motion carries. Next up is an amendment to transfer the budget for printing the county directory from the Clerk Register of Deeds to the Department of Public Communications. Moved by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Woodward.
So, I mean, this is an example, and I think over time we'll see even more of this, is that when we have a county department of public communications, this is the directory that has all the addresses and everything. I think that there's an opportunity, to also have a more real-time digital version, because sometimes some of that changes and officers change. But more importantly, since we're producing a booklet, like, wouldn't it be great that we can actually also put other programs that are available? These are distributed to communities and other types of things. And the Department of Public Communication that we, as a board, established a few budgets ago, is the best suited to be able to help organize and coordinate that. And so, talking with the executive office, I thought it made a lot of sense and very supportive of that. And we'll be working with them, with our office. What's Board of Commission important? How about a page that the Board of Commissioners does this in a directory that goes out to the public that we all distribute?
Commissioner Powell.
So our clerk department is not gonna oversee the development of the book anymore. It's our
It would be
communication.
Department of Public Communication.
So over the years, the clerk department usually administered and put that book together, and you have taken that responsibility off that department.
They do not have to allocate staff time to it, correct? I think but I would argue, voting and all that type of stuff, like there should be content and stuff, like here are clerk services, and that should be
Right, I
part
know
of it.
that, like, okay, no, we'll talk offline, but, oh, wow, okay. All right.
Anybody else, questions or comments? Okay, so I guess, well, no, I won't. Good question. Okay. Prompt the vote, please.
I wondered the same thing.
That's the inside joke, that's me and you, only me and you, only me and you.
Yes.
Oh, I'm
You
a
have
yes
7
too.
yeas and 0 nays.
Okay, thank you. It's actually been going quite smoothly today. We've had very few chances where people haven't had it come up for us.
Would you like me to, I can work on that.
Don't get Charlie
Thanks,
started.
It used to be my role.
Asking all the damn questions.
All right, the next one is the Historical Commission Outreach Expansion and Education Activities. Moved by Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Weipert. This is our Historical Commission. I don't know if you've seen their posters, their poster program that they're trying to do where they're trying to educate the public in Oakland County's role, at least right now, in World War II. But they have plans for doing some other projects going forward. They're working with the local libraries and city halls and things to put a frame up that they can come then change out these posters every few months. They would like to bump their budget up with an extra $1,915. I think that takes them to $10,000.
Just under.
Just under $10,000, so that's what this item is. Nobody's got any.
So is this the same group that focused on how we did the statue and?
Yes, that's
stuff,
exact
that
same group of
Okay, that same
people,
group,
the
okay.
Elizabeth Dennison Forth and that's that group,
Okay,
yes.
got it, okay.
There's also a vacancy, so if you know people who are very hungry about telling Oakland County history or, promoting and sharing Oakland County history. We are looking for, there's a vacant position on the Oakland County Historical Commission.
Yes. Okay, nobody's got any other comments? Let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
7 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay, excellent. Motion carries. So that is all of the pieces of Amendment A. Next up is item 11B.
Well, I think we have to
We would
vote
have to
on
go
it.
back and approve the
Oh, we have to vote on A, right.
Yeah, we're back to 11A to approve the
recommended budget.
recommended budget as amended.
Right, what he said.
Speak to the overall budget if you want, yes.
Moved by Commissioner.
We already got a motion and
Oh, we did, okay.
Oh, we do?
Just sitting there.
Okay, anybody who wants to speak on that? Commissioner Woodward.
Let me speak to the overall budget. So I want to applaud that. I know this committee sat through hours and hours of budget hearings, and as a result, this budget is better. There are a few other things that have come to surface, and that I would expect to get resolution in working with both caucus and caucus leadership and the full members of the board prior to the final board adoption of the budget. I want to speak of 4 of those things that I expect, some sort of resolution that I think is important that has been raised among this body that I just want to bring to attention. And then one other kind of task that I think to help support our oversight role just in general and how the county's $1 billion dollars are distributed across the county for the services we provide. So I'm going to talk about animal control, mental health, public safety, and roads. On animal control, I think we've had a lengthy conversation. We added new additional positions. We talked about the need for figuring out long-term a revenue stream to help support this, and we're pulling from fund balance, but I think it's important that we take appropriate action to bring in some increased revenue while also simultaneously focusing on increased compliance. Increased compliance will bring in additional revenue, and then maybe looking at some of that increased revenue that would come in to be used for supporting compliance and working with the department. Talk to the executive office about that. I think it's absolutely essential. We added some positions with monies from ARPA, and we added some additional positions because that's what's necessary to operate that institution, and the fiscally responsible way to do it is make sure the revenue's coming in to support it and not just drawing on fund balance to fund ongoing county operations. So I would expect some sort of action amendment, maybe even bringing before this committee as a recommendation to the full board of an amendment that we can take to the budget to address that. But looking at a modest increase in the dog license fees, but I think it's really important that that it's strategically structured to help support compliance, because frankly, you raise up compliance, more revenue can help support and offset the animal control operation. On the mental health front, I know that everyone here cares about mental health, understands the some cases like stagnant funding for mental health, not enough federal and state resources helping support it. As a county since 1989 that we have, we fund Oakland Community Mental Health at the same amount we started in 1989, which is roughly $9 million, and it stayed flat since 1989. I know there were some conversations, I've had conversations, I know you've, heard me interact with our public health agencies. Should we develop a strategy long-term to structurally try to start increasing that? What does that look like? Where does the revenue come from? Does it follow the same track that just goes into mental health, or does it run a parallel track to support an ongoing way to support a lot of the mental health initiatives that we have, as a board, supported using ARPA resources, whether it's co-responder programs or helping families get access to mental health services, et cetera. What does that look like? That is not going to be ready for this budget, and so, but I would like to, and we'll have further conversations about setting up a bipartisan study group to say what would this look like, so that when we come this time a year from now, that we have an ability to lean in a little bit further to support mental health. We do have plans to use, again, the remainder of our available ARPA resources to strengthen mental health. And so in that window, we'll obviously are spending more on mental health services as a county than we ever have. What does 25, 26, 27 look like? And so I want to kind of flag that, acknowledge it as being a discussion that's a priority for a lot of people. But it's, not likely to take an amendment or a change in this budget to address for the upcoming fiscal year. On roads, as a board that we have, generally supported road programs, whether it's been the Tri-Party program, that then, a companion local road improvement program, and then more recently, supporting roads helping support the public acceptance of self-assessing themselves, but being an incentive to get more township roads, into the program. And so look forward to that amendment coming forth probably on the floor like we have historically in past budgets. And then lastly, on the public safety front, working with the sheriff's office, I think it came up in the budget hearings, equipment and technology. Anytime that we can invest in equipment and technology that reduces need for use of lethal force, protecting our officers is a good thing. You heard about the tasers, that they're kind of at end of life and frankly will not be serviceable long term. There is actually better equipment available now that so 2 shots, 10 shots of electrodes or whatever, and figuring out a way, working with the sheriff's office to utilize the money that they've reserved to set aside for replacement, but to be able to get this newer technology sooner. And need to work on securing some revenue to do that and plan to do so, as well as some technology to support accessing real-time video to help support officers responding to emergencies, coordinating with available cameras, assessing, supporting saving labor time, speeding up investigations and response, as well as being able to tap into available surveillance, private businesses that voluntarily opt in to say you can use our technology to help do this, to respond to a crime when that's happening. So working with the sheriff's office to figure out what does that look like and what's the timeline. And so I would expect to see an amendment that attempts to tackle these two things. And then, so those are those things. So those are on deck. So not completely resolved yet, to be resolved on the floor or at a future finance committee meeting. The last being a discussion that I had an opportunity to talk with the leadership of this committee around performance auditing. And I think we as a board have a fiscal responsibility. We have an annual constitutional obligation to do a fiscal audit, and we do. We have Plant Moran that comes and does that. Performance auditing speaks more to the back end of did the work that we're paying for get done the way that it said. So we've been engaging in a tremendous amount of contracting for services, using, in some cases, leveraging ARPA dollars to help do that, the new transit millage and those contracts to make certain that we are paying for individual services. We're paying for routes, we're paying for drivers, we're paying for an expectation of rides around there. There is a best practice approach to from an oversight agency to make certain that we're, getting the bang for a buck, and most importantly, we're getting the things that we're paying for. We talked about this during the Aramark contract with the sheriff. We want to make certain that we have the right type of staff that's on. Obviously, departments who are in charge of this are looking at this and monitoring this as an oversight body. I think it's appropriate to set up a structure that allows for these selective performance audit. You're not going to be able to, audit every single contract every single year, but particularly ones that we're talking about sizable investments, multi-million-dollar investments, multi-year million-dollar investments. It's appropriate to do so, and so probably be working. I'm going to talk to the leadership of this committee and others to set up a special committee to work with the executive purchasing and the board of commissioners. What does that look like? It would definitely fall in our purview as similarly how the audit falls in our purview, and figure out what that looks like going forward. And so, but I think it makes sense. With the transit stuff like top of mind, that becomes one of the first. And I know that assurance that the the increased services out of the food contract at the jail, that those obligations are being delivered. And if not, you need to bring the vendors in to say, hey, what's going on and how we're gonna make it right. So that's,
Which is how Aramark lost their contract.
well, in other places for sure.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the chair on everything that he had to say? Okay.
I have,
Commissioner Cavell.
so, with the roads, for example, the township roads, would Royal Oak Township be included in that as a township, or do they somehow fall under a different qualifier for some reason, cause they're like close to 8 Mile?
Yes, they're a township, and so,
Yeah.
yes, they're eligible for
But they have
those.
like paved roads, so I didn't know if that meant anything, you know?
A lot of townships, they have paved roads. A lot of townships have gravel roads, so,
Okay.
yes, so think of there are 3 road programs that we are supporting right now. The Tri-Party, which we've supported the longest for 20 plus years.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. The local road improvement program, also a good one. That replicates but is able to do things on roads that are not necessarily under the jurisdiction of the road commission. And then there's this newer one that, I mean, I can give credit to Commissioner Joliet, who's has spearheaded that effort and have been supportive of this pilot for I mean, we talked about over the next 3 years, so this is year 2 and there'll be a 3rd year. The details are still being worked out on the township project, but basically it's to provide some county resources as the goal to be the incentive that gets the jurisdiction that has to form an SAD to voluntarily raise their assessment to pay for their road. So Royal Oak Township, West Bloomfield Township, White Lake, all the way up in Rose Township land. Are all eligible. There's a criteria that I know that there's been a work group and staff and supporting Joliet, and I believe we'll get that criteria coming to us in the next month or so.
Okay.
But on that subject, and Royal Oak Township is a good example because they have to provide a match. So the SAD would do that, but you're talking about a community that's already so economically disadvantaged, you know,
That's why I brought up.
can they provide a match? If in the longer run they can't provide a match, how do we help them? Because, you know, having this money just go to the wealthier townships could be a problem long term.
And that's part of why I brought it up, because if I remember right, last year, I don't think Royal Oak Township applied, or however it
It's not that you apply for the funds, and so basically, like the criteria of like what are the projects that we would support? So the process to get a road fixed or rebuilt is that a jurisdiction has to get determined, you've got to get 50% plus 1. Help me, township people. 50% plus 1 of the people on that road or in that area that says, yes, I will raise my taxes voluntarily for 10 years or whatever. They work with the road commission generally to figure out what this would look like, to try to make it as affordable as possible. And then the goal of this money is basically say, listen, if you do this now, then we can put a little bit more money, it will lower your cost a little bit with the goal of incentivizing. An emphasis on density, on equity and consideration, that this is not, middle income census data, using all of those criteria to make certain that these limited dollars are spread out as fairly as possible. So it's not like Royal Oak Township didn't apply, they didn't submit an SAD. Now I say that because I recently had an opportunity to talk with some Royal Oak Township officials, and they would like to figure out, like, is there a way to do that? They also go and pursue grants that sometimes require a 20% match, and so there is a way that these dollars could be used to help offset that 20%, so that a project that otherwise they wouldn't even be able to supply the 20% match is possible. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Powell, you have a
I have
question?
to excuse myself, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm a yes vote, but I need to excuse, I can't hold it, so I'm just.
Okay.
That's fun.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah, and you know, if you got 5 minutes after, I'll talk to you. After.
All right, so any other questions or comments on the budget? So before we go ahead and prompt the vote, right? Okay, let's prompt the vote.
Oh, I did have something else.
Sorry. Wait till next budget hearing.
You can talk about, I mean, on discussion of the public hearing. I was
Didn't
like,
understand.
okay, I guess not.
I was so in the zone because I had a couple things to bring up,
Go
but.
ahead and cancel the vote and that will also allow.
All right, we're gonna cancel the vote, we'll start over.
Okay.
Oh,
So-
cool. Oh.
Oh,
Well, now that we
they might-
canceled
they
the
might-
vote, all right.
They like it,
30
they like it
seconds.
now.
No, okay, well, I just wanna lift up two things that we heard in our budget hearing, which were first about the health department, and as you heard them coming today before us about starting this innovative behavioral health urgent care center, there will be a need for sustainability. So you put that coupled with the fact that our restaurant and inspection and like swimming pool fees and environmental health fees have not been modernized or updated, and also they've mentioned and Chair has mentioned, compliance can be an issue. So there will be times where, we are unlike other counties where if you have to return to inspect X location, whether it's a restaurant, a pool, or whatever, 10 times, you're only paying $80 or $100 for the first inspection, but you don't have the recurring fees. So it disincentivizes compliance and good behavior and costs the county money. So that's one thing we heard, something that's not gonna be in this budget, but something that sounds like they're interested and motivated to work on. So would love to talk with anyone more that's of interest. And then second, we also heard about how there have been close to 700 households saved from foreclosure because of a state program that will last until 2027 with the treasurer's office. So if anyone wants to talk about that more, so we can plan ahead because we know how the economy works, right? We're overdue for something to go wrong and it hits us with foreclosures. So planning ahead, the treasurer's starting to do that and would love to work with any of you all and the treasurer on that too.
All right. Now we're gonna prompt the vote.
Oh, I caught it. Good.
You did.
Wow,
Waiting for you.
Charlie dragged it out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah,
Charlie.
But it was number one
Credit.
energy, you know what I
Phil
mean?
said, hey, we should wait for her. so
Oh, well,
he was
thank
there.
you. Yeah, it was one that I was waiting. I'm like, Dave, wrap it up. I'm like, forget it. I can't have it no more.
You have 7 days.
All right, we have a unanimous vote. Excellent. All right, the last item on this section of the agenda is we need to authorize the public notice and public hearing for September 21st, 2023 at 9:45 a.m. That's our next board meeting. So Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Powell. Any comments? It's a morning meeting. So don't forget. All right, then let's prompt the vote.
You have 7 days and 0 nays.
Excellent, okay, our public hearing is set. Next up, we have our second public comment for anyone who cares to address the board at this time. Seeing no one, I'll close public comment, move on to other business. I have been asked by Joanne to ask all of the commissioners that are here today to respond to her scheduling of the airport tour and the tour to the Clinton River water thing. So if you have not yet responded to Joanne, please do that. She specifically wanted me to ask in this meeting, so.
Please remind about the Tri-County Summit Friday.
Oh, yeah, and also the Tri-County Summit is Friday, so don't forget that. Please come. Where is it at?
Grosse Point.
Oh, the Grosse Point War Memorial. Okay.
I know, that's what I said.
It's pretty down there,
Being
though.
nice, right? To what's it, the Wayne County? Yeah,
I will be
right.
giving a personal Grosse
Took us
Point
to the
tour of Grosse Point Blank, famous sites that were used in the movie that some of us grew up to.
What movie was that?
Exactly, thank you.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
I know.
Yeah, we're the, yeah, sorry, we don't know what
Is that the one where he stands outside and sings with a boombox?
Different, same actor, different movie.
One that gets culture, I guess.
Yeah, right. All right, well, if nobody has anything else, I am going to adjourn this meeting at 1:20. Thanks, everybody.